Much of our teaching that I do here on the broadcast comes from the Gospels. I read the Gospels quite often, and I enjoy the teachings of Jesus, and I love to teach them. But I've told you this before, that one of the things you have to understand, that when you are reading the words of Jesus and you come upon a scripture that speaks to your heart, to be able to fully comprehend it, you have to go back in the scripture, several verses, sometimes even a few chapters. And you've got to find where Jesus begins that teaching. And then you can begin to make application accordingly. Sometimes a sermon will start from a question that somebody asked him, or perhaps maybe an accusation, or maybe some event that took place, and Jesus would pick up from that and would begin to teach. So I came upon this scripture, Matthew chapter 7, verse 20. It simply says, "Wherefore by their fruits ye shall know them." Well, that's a very succinct point that I received that, but then I said, okay, there's got to be more to this, and of course there is. And so if you go back at the beginning of that chapter, you'll find that Jesus teaches about judgments, hypocrisy, defaming of spiritual things. He talks about faith. He says, seek, knock, ask. He talks about the golden rule. And then he talks about the gate to heaven. And finally, he brings this point out. He begins to talk about false prophets. And he talks about how that these false prophets, often they will be dressed in what would be considered that of a sheep, or they appear to be a lamb, but instead they are ravaging wolves. Thus, this leads us to the teaching about the fruit, and whether or not it's real, or if it's not real, and does it produce good fruit. So, wherefore, by their fruits ye shall know them. But I was particularly intrigued by verse 16. Ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns, or figs of thistles? And so I had to bring this out to my congregation when I was preaching this at Freedom Road. And so what does this scripture mean? Thorns and thistles? Well, one thing that we know about both a thorn or a thistle, they're really only good for one thing, and that's to prick you sometimes when you happen to get near them. They really don't seem to have any other value. But the point is that sometimes it would seem like that somebody would try to pass off a grape that was really produced by a thorn, which has no value at all, but yet tried to give the indication that it was something that is not. And so, by the fruits, you shall know them, whether it's a false prophet or someone who's genuinely teaching the truth that Jesus would teach. This is Pastor Jack King with the gospel on the radio broadcast.